we were gonna get kidnapped. And so if it wasn't money given to my dad given to the people that were gonna kidnap us, then we needed to flee the country. When we look at our relationship with the Lord, right, there is this like blind trust. And that internally we might be dying, scared, nervous, all of it, but I trust that He has me. Once you are in a state of grace and prayer, the devil will never enter your marriage. I can testify to what it is to be a prayerful family, because we, through thick and thin, that's something that has always maintained us together.
Welcome back to the Fearless Catholic Woman podcast. I'm your host, Yingyee Herman, and our mission is to empower the modern-day Catholic woman to live fearlessly in her God-given identity. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and like this video. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening, make sure to subscribe, follow, and give us a rating for this podcast so that it can reach other Catholic women. Today, I have Laura here with me. Hi, Laura. How are you?
Hi, Yingyee. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And I know Laura because we're in the same cohort for the Encounter School of Ministry online. And so you and I have been kind of just seeing each other. Sometimes we're partners for our activations in our class. And I wanted to get you on. And it's just so lovely that you're able to be here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
Of course. I always start with our guests sharing their testimony and what brought you to Christ. So, what's your story, Laura?
For the invitation about the story, right? And it's like, okay, Lord, what is it that you want me to share? And honestly, I grew up in a loving home, in a very Catholic cradle home. I have two older sisters, mom and dad, full of love, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, small, but they were there. And I really encountered Jesus in my home. There was a lot of good stuff. And the initial push was very obvious is when I came to the States, right? So I was born and raised in Colombia. I'm from the capital, Bogotá. And when we came to the States, it was a very painful process, of course, because now family is being divided for the better of our lives. And really, that's where Jesus started taking the wheel, because we were coming to a country that we knew very little of the English, even though we did go to bilingual schools. And when we arrived here, those stories are wild to tell, other than it was God protecting us, because there's a lot of details in the way that are beautiful. But that's where it was, all right, completely abandonment in the Lord, right? Because we were from living a pretty healthy life, wealthy, a lot of good stuff around us. We had everything and more, to zero. And how are we going to start from zero all of a sudden? So it was as I started growing up and learning about life, how He just sustained us and carried us throughout the pain. My father had to stay behind for 6 months, and those were the hardest months of my life. My dad and I, may his soul rest in peace, he passed away 2021, but him and I were very close. And not having my father for 6 months, it was a complete reliance on the Lord, right? And my mom, a very loving mom, serviced us. That's her main love language, to service and giving us and having everything impeccable, to having to work. And my eldest sister to going to university normal, to come here to have to work. So there were days that we ate one bread, because that was all that was there, right? Coming from such a home of luxury and abundance, to that day we could only eat one bread. And how it started working, right, in another country, in another culture. Thanks be to God, it was us, the four of us, until my father arrived. And I will tell you that that's where I encountered the Lord mainly, because it was, you had nothing to rely on. Of course, thinking of material things and surroundings, but it was Him to sustain us.
Could I ask how old you were when you came to America?
I was 13.
Oh, okay. So 13 years old. And like you said, it was such a mindset, and not a
Yes.
mindset, but a reality shift from just having, the riches that they talk about in the Bible to nothing. What made your family move to America?
So unfortunately, we had to come because we were gonna get kidnapped. And so if it wasn't money given to my dad given to the people that were gonna kidnap us, then we needed to flee the country. And so my parents had to make the rough decision to, you know what, I gotta save my wife and my daughters, and I need to take you to a country that you're gonna have better opportunities.
Mm. That
They
was
told us is that we were gonna come to Orlando to see Mickey Mouse.
a goddess. So they were just trying to protect you guys from the truth. And how old were you when you found out the truth?
I will tell you in my 20s, mid 20s. It was very, very later on, for sure.
Mm. Yeah, so you were in America and you're just like, where's Mickey Mouse? And where is
Yes, I mean it was obvious that we're here. Dad is not here. He's gonna come in 6 months. We're gonna start school, and there is this trusting, beautiful interaction with my parents, right? That we trusted them, that we knew that they knew best. And so we
Mhm.
just like, okay, we're gonna get into school and we're gonna get working and we're gonna survive somewhere somehow. Okay, well, that's what they were saying. Again, when we look at our relationship with the Lord, right, there is this like blind trust, and that internally we might be dying, scared, nervous, all of it, but I trust that He has me. That
Mhm.
was a trust that I had, I have, and back then when I was little, I had with my parents.
That's very impressive because at 13, you can only imagine putting myself in your shoes. It's like my friends are stripped away now, and everything I'm used to is stripped away to just nothing. Did you see the faith being reflected by your mother that you were just like, I know I'm okay?
I will say that the love that they had for us and the way that they treat us and the way that they care for us, again, with all their, of course, mistakes and weaknesses, right? But it was, I guess it was that unconditional love and support and regard and this togetherness that my parents always gave us. So, yes, it was difficult because, of course, coming from having it all to having nothing, thanks be to God, my parents were always teaching us that we have to be grateful with what we have. So that was something that at home, having a lot, it was already engraved in like value the hard work, value everything that's given, material, spiritual, financial, all of it. So it was a wake up call, of course, where we came from everything to having to come and live in a one room, not even an apartment. It was a room from an apartment from a lady, right? So to have to sleep in one bed, we're talking about major changes where that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. But it was that togetherness that we got it. And I think my mom's strength, prayers and strength are unbelievable because it was what else could sustain such a drastic change. My oldest sister started working, right? Two jobs. She did car wash and she worked in a like in a little mall kiosk where they sell bread and appetizers, not appetizers, bread and pastries, right? And sometimes that was what we ate because they would throw it away, so that's what she would bring us home. We went very resourceful. I share this story with my mother-in-law all the time, and you know, grilled cheeses, right? It's a pretty common thing internationally, right? And so we didn't have any sandwich maker, so we used, you're gonna laugh, aluminum foil, where we wrapped up the sandwich, and then we will use the iron to do the grilled cheese.
Oh, that is very creative. Yeah, that's very creative.
To talk about being resourceful, okay, we want to eat a grilled cheese, but we got nothing to cook it on. Well, how about we use an iron? So of course, we laugh now and we look at that, but that was just being resourceful. That's what we got. We will survive it.
God is only asking for 1% of your day, which is just 14 minutes. If you're trying to prioritize God but you need structure, I made a free digital booklet for you called The First 14, a daily prayer habit. It's a 14-day guide with simple prayer and journal prompts you can follow, and it's made for women who want consistency with God without burning out. Grab it through the link in the show notes. Download it and start today.
I can't imagine how strong your mom is mentally as well to just have to do that, because I think as I'm not a mom yet, but I have siblings, and sometimes when you're going through hard things, you don't want to share it because it's going to startle someone you care about. And for her to
Mhm.
just put up such strength is just very, it's a power of its own. Have you seen your mother cry or just be anxious?
In those moments, I don't recall. I was very, I was very, I would say I was very naive. I'm sure my sisters were more aware of that. But in those moments, no. Mom is a pretty happy, joyful person. So I'm sure she had her moments. I'm sure, of course. It was never, I would say, the culture of the home, the environment was never that way, right? Now we start growing, and yes, there's a faith and there's trust in God. And it was a very social faith. It wasn't a very, like, we weren't going to church. Again, credit Catholics, but there was a lot of ignorance in the way. And of course, Lord, in His mercy, where it's funny that we had to go to another complete country to start encountering the Lord 101. And each at their own time really started being, I will say, good Catholics and going to church on Sundays and learning about our faith. It was a beautiful journey that, in a way, we all did it together in our own times, but we did it together. But that was always there. So even if it was from a place of like, we weren't going to church, now we understand what we were missing out.
Mhm.
But it was still that constant internal strength that the Lord was giving my mom, let alone when my father arrived. And then we moved to an efficiency, and that was like major. Like, that was like, okay, this is major, coming from one room to an efficiency. And it was still a one bedroom, tiny kitchen, the five of us.
That your story just kind of reminds me of my family story, especially with my mom, because we immigrated here in 2004. And this was, America is not her native language. And she didn't know English at all. And she had four kids she had to basically raise on her own because my dad would be working, and with an immigrant job, he had humble jobs. My parents have humble jobs. And I remember like they were struggling to just pay bills, or my mom would just tell me she would have to take us to the doctors and she was so scared to drive just because she didn't know the roads in America and she didn't have her driver's license. So we would walk. She would take all four of us and we would walk for hours just to go to the clinic and then go back. And, with four kids, there's different characters, and all four kids are whining. She toddlers, and I'm the oldest. So I was like 6 or 5 at that point. So you can imagine down the line how hard it is. But she didn't have anyone she trusted. But during that time, I have never seen my mom cry. And like you said, I think my mom had her moments, but she would always pray to God as well. And I think just seeing her strength in the Lord and just where she is now, it's just so impressive of how God's graces and protection can really carry us through, especially with the power of prayer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when I always tell everybody, if it wasn't for my mom's prayers, I don't think I would have been in a path of faithfulness. Because I did stray away when I went to my undergrad. I went to Tampa, University of South Florida. And that's where I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do my thing. I don't want God in my life. And I completely strayed away for 3 full years. All I did was study. I'm a big time nerd. I love to study, I love to learn. And at the same time, I was partying. It was party time. I enter a church, I will tell you, twice a year, if I did. My mom's prayers, that's where they got stronger. And I will always tell mom where I was and dad. Always, where are you going? This place, what time you arrived? 7 a.m. Like it was like a complete transparent. I had very good grades. I never flunked anything. So they were like, where are we going to grab ourselves from? And I know that they were patiently, anxiously waiting for me to get back into my faith. So I would tell you that when you ask, when did you meet the Lord, right? I've always had him, always felt them. Straight away from him, I'm sure he was just arms crossed, waiting for you to come back. And surely when I came back home because I moved away because I earned a scholarship. So as soon as I finished my undergrad, I came back to do my master's program to live back home in my culture, right? We don't turn 18 and leave home. We actually get married and leave home. That's the standard. And so I come back and I said, Mom, I am super dry. And I remember these words and she's like, what do you mean? I said, I need the Lord. I was in the darkest of the darkest of my processes. And she's like, non-alarm, very loving. Well, I go to a praying group. If you want to come, you're more than welcome. And that's how the Lord took me back and said, you're not leaving. And thanks be to God, since 2009, I have not left, not even planning to. That's what started my, how they say, reversion.
Hmm. Yeah. So it was at this prayer group that her prayer friends prayed for you too. What did you encounter there?
So of course, when I come back and I'm realizing, because I've always been very Mary and I've always prayed to Mary. Oh, that has always been part of my life. In my school in Colombia, there was a little chapel that I always went after recess. So instead of going and playing with my friends, I will eat my lunch and then I will go pray a little bit to Mama Mary. Like so, I know that her and I have a very special bond. And that was, of course, praying group, and they will pray the rosary. It was kind of like it was an internal flame getting back on. And I'm like, okay, I do need you, Lord, right? But I didn't have a personal relationship with him. So that's what started making me know, okay, I know you by home, I know you by tradition. Now I want to get to know you and I so I can get to know my friend. And that started the journey. It was through her. It was through that prayer group rosary that I started feeling that flame and that nudge of like, come find me, come seek me, I will feel you. And it was a beautiful story how he really caught me back. And I always say that he's intense. Once you open your heart, he is not leaving. And that's exactly how I felt. I really desired it. I never fought it back. I've always been there. But of course, if you don't put some water and sun and soil, well, that plant is not going to survive, right? So I think that those little moments where I'm like, okay, I started steady going to the prayer group. And then I'm like, I'm having even more thirst now and I want to experience more. I end up going to an Emmaus retreat, right? And so the road to Emmaus is when Jesus appeared to the two Samaritans, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. Hmm.
I, and they didn't realize it was Jesus until they get to the home and like, how come our heart wasn't on fire, right? Well, Emmaus did that for me. I always describe it as it took me out of my darkness, but remember, I was still filthy. So then he started cleansing up.
Is the Emmaus retreat a Hispanic retreat that you
So
went
it is
to?
both. It is his. I did it in Spanish, but they have it both. They have it in English and Spanish.
That is so funny that you mentioned the Emmaus retreat because someone that I interviewed, Teresa, she talked about the Emmaus retreat and she encountered the Lord. And that was a retreat where the God just showed up to heal all of her wounds. So now I want to go see the Emmaus retreat because I feel like second time is God is probably dropping seeds for me to go.
It's a beautiful time to spend alone time with the Lord. It's a 3 day retreat that really, really, he talked with me. I needed time alone with him. And he talked to me in all my areas and places and woundedness and joys. And I was on fire. Usually when you leave a retreat, you're on fire, right?
Mhm.
And I thank him so much by never allowing that fire to cease, because that really got me to, I want more.
It started the fire that never goes out, that part. But I want to go back really quick for what you just said. I think before you were just saying like, oh, I would always tell my parents where I am, and your mom just never stopped praying for you. That's just kind of I there's this beauty and again this power of intercessory prayer that I think that sometimes, like when we're praying for someone, off the bat, it's like, oh, I'm just praying for someone. But no, there's power when your heart posture is in it, of saying, Lord, guide my daughter to safety, guide my daughter to back to the faith. And I have seen it in my own hands because when I was younger, I was just like, I'm praying for someone. It's not really that important, right? But when I started praying for example, my husband's conversion or my family to forgive a another family member, I have seen God move in so many different ways. Could we tap into that power of intercession? How have you seen the power of intercession from your mom and now from yourself come into life?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. It was in our each individual journey that mom was praying for us, right? And when I come back, I remember both my sisters, if I recall correctly, were married already. They had left the house. And I remember they were also in their journey back, one way or another. They both divorced. It was very difficult for my mom to have, of course, both divorces. And even through the pain, the Lord knew what he was doing, because their current husbands are the most amazing men on planet Earth. And it's a blessing to say that all three get along, including my husband, right? And not everybody gets to see that blessing, and I get to experience that. And I tell you, all of that is intercessory prayer, because there's no other explanation. So each in our way, coming back to Emmaus, I remember my mom is the one that did Emmaus first. She invited me. I did Emmaus. I invited my oldest sister. My oldest sister did Emmaus. And now it was my middle sister that we invited, but it was much more complicated to tell her to come. Remember, we begged her years. And one day my oldest sister kneels in front of her and says, Sister, you need to go to Emmaus. It was powerful, because we knew everybody needed in our own ways to get back and to have that personal relationship with the Lord. And it's such a real blessing to testify, right? When I in front of families and siblings and seeing the brokenness, I can testify to what it is to be a prayerful family, because we, through thick and thin, that's something that has always maintained us together. The love that we are able to have among one another. They're my best friends, both my sisters, and they say the same thing. Like, we have a very, very close relationship that only intercessory prayer can do that, because there's no other way that in your own unique way, as much as there's love in the home, of course we all live different perspectives of the growing up, of the move, of their own life stories, to now say, I need a prayer. Please make sure you pray for me, because I've had a tough day. And you know that your sister is going to sit and pray. That is not going to be left in like, yeah, it will be there. I'll pray for you. Text. No, no, there is an action behind it. So, yes, absolutely. And it really comes from my grandparents, because that's where we used to have rosaries in my home, where my grandparents come and we used to laugh. The whole rosary, we used to laugh. I had no idea what was happening.
You go give an example of how you've prayed for someone like your sister and how God has answered.
I tell you every day, all day. I will tell you more for my husband because
Yes.
the way that we met was got sent through prayer, right? Both, of course, we end up find out. So I met my husband he's the one with the dates, 2011. 2011, yes. And I remember a week before I had met him, I was done. I was tired of dating. I was tired of doing it my way. And I kept asking God, and God was not answering, of course, because I wanted it my way. So that day I got to my room, I kneel, and I said, Lord, I want you to send me a man that loves you first, so he will know how to love me. Later on, while we're dating, my husband shares with me that he did the very same prayer that very same day, the week before we met. He was in his balcony with a beer in his hand after a hard working day. Lord, send me a wife that knows how to love you first, so he knows how to love me. And a week later, so I tell everybody there's hope. God answered us in a week. God only knows what he will answer to other people because usually a week is pretty good timing. And I remember when we met, so my husband is Italian, born and raised in Rome, and he was not very practicing. He had all his sacraments, but that's it. And him stepping into church, not much. That was one of my musts in a husband, that he needed to be a man of God. And the Lord knew what he was doing because I said, okay, he's not practicing, Lord. I'm going to start praying for him and I'm going to start you bringing him close to you. And the Lord answered 20-fold of this. So in our preparation of getting married, I didn't have my confirmation because remember, I arrived here when I was 13. We weren't very active in the church, and that's the time that you get confirmed. And it was just like, we didn't do it, forgotten, it wasn't priority. Fast forward to me getting preparation marriage with my husband, I have to get confirmed to be able to get married. So we go through the 9-month course. And on my second class, I'm leaving the class, and so I'm calling my fiance in that moment. And he's like, listen, I would love to come and join your courses. Can I do that? And I'm like, sure, I will ask the teacher. The teacher said yes. He starts coming. And this is how the Lord brought him back to church through a 9-month period of him really understanding who God was, a personal relationship with the Lord. And I always say to God, whole glory to you, because I was obedient in praying for him often, constantly. Lord, get him back to you. Lord, get him back to you. And that's exactly what he did in his own way. He's my sponsor for confirmation. So that was, of course, you can't make that up. You can't plan that. So extremely beautiful. He's also the sponsor of my other sister. And the Lord just brought him back in a way that he's a Knight of Columbus. He also did Emmaus. He ushers in the church. He loves serving the Lord. Super passionate about getting into faith, understanding faith, doing this together. He's the one that pushed me to go to the Encounter conference together. So it was him answering prayers, almost like, keep being obedient because I'm going to keep giving you back.
That's so beautiful on how God has answered your relationship and your prayers. And I really like how Encounter teaches us about intercessory prayer, where there's a gap and between someone you're praying for and God, and you're in the middle of this gap, and you become the bridge when you're interceding for someone is so that they can walk over that bridge to God, to the other side. And when I started seeing that image of me becoming a bridge to someone, I was like, I'm going to go 10 times even more into praying for someone. And yeah, like you are just a testament of don't stop praying even though you don't see results. God is not a short-term result God. He's a long-term God, and that means that even though it might take a while, it's going to pay off. It's very rewarding to see that. So I'm really happy to hear that
Mhm.
your husband is
is just a man of God and he's serving the Lord in so many ways now. I wanted to talk about Mother Mary because there was a time where I didn't really have a connection with Mary. And I was telling my mom because I was hosting a retreat and I was like, Mom, can you pray for me? And I was just like, wow, I love that my mom is always so eager to pray for me and she will never say no. And all of a sudden in my head, I was just like, there was a thought that popped up of, well, you can pray to Mother Mary and Mother Mary will always pray and lift up your prayers too. And so I was just like, wow, that is such a gift to have a spiritual mother and a physical mother in this world that will always cover me in prayers. And so when you just brought up about how your mom was praying and then how you met Mary, I was like, that is so similar to my story as well.
That's so precious. Yes, Mary has always been present in me. I am a very touchy-feely person. I love hugs and kisses, and that's one of the things that my mom is not. My mom loves to love through service. She's like she overdo it. Honestly, she puts herself last often in life. And of course the lies filter in here, right? So I grew up with the lie that my mom didn't love me because she didn't hug me. And so my goal, my father and I were very close. So he'll be the one brushing my hair. He'll be the one taking care of me just because we had a closer relationship, right? But I never went either through anger or hate. I went through, I'll say, contemplation. And so contemplation was Mary. And she was feeling it. And granted, now as an adult, I can see these things and the why, but I knew it was coming almost from like a protection of making a lie bigger than what it wasn't, in her interceding with like, no, I love you, your biological mom loves you, your spiritual mom loves you, and I'm here just in case you want to believe those lies. And so I always picture her kind of like, I'm right here, oh, you need to call on me, right? And I will intercede. And it's often because she's just everywhere in my life in so many levels. And it's been years where I've asked and started month of October the Holy Rosary so I can do it on daily prayers. And it's been, I'll tell you, like 6 years easily to try and try and try. And the Lord has been so good in the last year to be able to provide that gift. But it was on his time because we're now a daily rosary prayers with my husband. And whenever he's not there, the day is almost like it didn't end right. There's this like final bouquet of flowers that we need to have when we are going to sleep. And in the marriage, the power of prayer daily together, it's, I don't think I can give you words for that. So because she's been so present in life through trying to fill in those lies that mom didn't love me, my mom adores us. She gives her life for us. She loves in a different way. I also needed to come to terms to that, right? To know and understand Our Lady is interceding for us. Continue to call on us. All we gotta do is say yes and be obedient. Our humanity gets in the way, absolutely. But there's a humble place to touch in there and realize, Mama, you know more.
I think this is a full circle moment, especially, I mean, you you started just having a thirst and desire for God at the prayer group that was, they were doing their rosary. And then here you are guiding your spouse in the rosary into closer relationship with Mary. How have you seen the rosary just bless you, or the rosary just shift how you look at things now after praying it?
It's funny because understanding the roles of femininity and masculinity in life, but better yet in marriage, has been a beautiful journey because she is the best example of that. So I will tell you that tapping into that feminine genius I'm choleric sanguine temperament, and I'm very impulsive. And my husband is a complete opposite. He's a melancholic, phlegmatic, very, very peaceful person. And I know that coming across that way oftentimes can hurt him, especially because he's sensitive. He's a very strong man and very sensitive, melancholic. His heart is beautiful. And so to know that there is a soft, tender, welcoming relationship place that I also have to tap into and continue to understand. I think that the rosary has been the number one tool to don't be impulsive. Like, there's no other explanation to say this. There is a protection that's not describable with words. And there is, again, the thirst that continues to come back because, yes, we're not perfect. In a perfect world, it would be daily, absolutely. And we try our very best to be obedient on it. I will tell you that out of the 7 days, maybe 1 or 2, we wouldn't pray it. Max 3, that hasn't happened in a while. It's max 2. But to know that there is a different treatment, there is a different caring, there is a different love for one another, right? Because we know, being married, that there is a daily work on it, because it takes work. And so if the ultimate goal is to be a saint, well, why not to Jesus through Mary? That's like, we're like guaranteed to get to Jesus like that.
I can't imagine as well. I mean, Mary, I mean, just how your mom and I, we have always been praying for, they have always been praying for us. I know for sure that Mary has always been praying to God for Jesus and interceding with Jesus. And she was probably one of the hardest intercessor ever. And for her now we have that privilege of her interceding for us as the mother of Jesus herself. I think that is such a gift, and a lot of us need to utilize it more. That Mary is the strongest intercessor as well. And I am also very impulsive, and I am kind of quick to get angry. There was a point, and so I was just like praying the rosary one day. I'm like, Mary, I need your graces, and I need you to just help me just to become the woman that I'm set to be through you for my husband, who is very sensitive as well. And I don't know, there's just this femininity that a spiritual mother can only give in my experience, where the father in a way couldn't, for example. If that, I don't know if that makes sense, but just because I had to tap into my femininity and that submission level, where I had a hard time understanding it from God, who is the spiritual father. But we're so lucky as Catholics to have such a spiritual mother that even as wives, we can look forward to when we don't really resonate with father, or there's these father wounds that are blocking us, versus there's this motherly side where we can go to. So I really like that you said just praying together is important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's, I say that we should create a big boycott and let's start redeeming the word submissiveness, because it's one of the most beautiful words, should we understand the reality of what it is. Because in the Bible, Ephesians 5 tells us exactly, you will become one, and husbands, love your wives, and wives, respect your husband. And that dance in the marriage only comes through our real submissiveness, because we trust that he's going to protect and care about on me at all levels, and that he could be the man of the household where I can help him be that advisor. That's why we're created from the rib, right? Because we protect the heart. And that's why our husbands are able to come and protect us and love on us and guide us and direct us. But that healthy dance only happens through our real submissiveness, which is super healthy, because there's roles in the marriage. And so that has been a whole beautiful journey. 3 years ago, I finally changed my last name, very proud to say, because I always used to say I'm a recovering feminist, ex-feminist, because I no longer do that, because it used to come from places of woundedness and knowing that no, none of that is going to help in my marriage. I want to be the submissive wife to my husband, because my husband is going to protect and love me and guide me, not because he's going to step on me.
You have explained submissiveness in such a beautiful way, and I think it was really through the grace of Mary just flowing through you to just realize like this is what submission is about, because oh, so beautiful. And that's why prayer in a marriage is so sacred and so important, because there's this world today that is quick to say divorce someone when your husband is doing you something wrong, or to an extent, or they're just quick to throw out the word divorce, or cheating or affairs or lust. And so grounding yourself in prayer and praying for each other really changes the game in the strength that you have with each other.
Remember that the prayer, once you are in a state of grace and prayer, the devil will never enter your marriage. As simple as that. You leave a tiny space open where you're not praying. Who's in the middle? Something becomes the middle, but definitely not Jesus.
Oh, something becomes in the middle. I That just convicted my heart so much, and I think it's going to convict others as well. And it's also, I think I understand now your relationship with God and your family, because you guys have always just been praying for each other and not letting the devil slip through the cracks. That's just the beauty of praying in community, but just interceding for others as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Laura, it was so nice to have you on and just speak about the intercession of praying and just hearing about your story. So, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you for your invitation, Yingyee. And I pray for your podcast and that many, many more can come and grow and learn and realize the beauty of our femininity as husbands, daughters, sisters, and brides, because they're critical relationships with our Lord that we need to work on healing.
Yes, there's still so much more I want to talk to you and interview you, so we have to have a round two. But would you be able to end us in prayer?
Absolutely. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Our Lady, protect us with your mantle. Cover us and guide us towards Jesus. As your yes to the Lord, allow us to say yes to the Lord. With fear, with pain, with joys, with everything that you had in your little young heart, that we can continue to follow your yes and lead to Jesus. We ask this in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.